At the October 2020 Apple event for the iPhone 12, Apple introduced something that was unexpected coming from Apple. The iPhone 12 mini was unveiled, showing a fully featured iPhone 12 but in a smaller 5.4-inch display. This iPhone kept the same camera system, display specs, performance, and design of the larger 6.1-inch iPhone 12, but it put the phone into a more compact form factor that was about the size of an iPhone 5 from 2012. The iPhone 12 mini was released later that year in November of 2020, and initially, reviewers were quick to note the less than optimal battery runtime as one of the biggest issues of this phone. I actually owned an iPhone 12 mini when it came out, and I really enjoyed it, but this is why Apple shut down the mini line of phones after only 2 devices in the series. The 12 mini's battery life was really cut short due to the small battery and mainly the inclusion of 5G. Even though the 12 mini's battery was comparable to something like the iPhone 5, which was fine for 2012, people used their phones a lot more in 2020 than they did in 2012, and that was one of the flaws with the 12 mini. The other issue is that many people were looking for just a larger display, and since Apple also made the standard iPhone a 6.1-inch display in 2020 instead of a 5.7-inch on the Pros and 6.1 on the non-Pros, there were larger displays basically across the board on the normal iPhones. Even though the 12 mini was less expensive, many people disregarded that and decided to buy the larger iPhone 12 instead for only $130 more. I actually avoided the iPhone 12 because I wanted the mini personally. But when I used the 12 mini, battery life was never really an issue. I actually found that the 12 mini lasted just fine for my usage, and I never really wanted or needed a bigger battery. But Apple had to do something about the battery of the 12 mini for sales to increase and to keep the series alive. So in 2021, Apple decided to release the iPhone 13 mini with a larger battery and a more efficient processor. The iPhone 13 series was a massive jump over the 12, with better displays, better performance, and better cameras. And most importantly for the minis, for most people, a longer lasting battery across the board. But the iPhone 13 mini's battery was still apparently not enough for many people, as it still got complaints from reviewers and users. I also owned and still own a 13 mini, and I never had an issue with that phone's battery either, but I never really used mine on iOS 16, so I guess I can't speak for the longevity of this phone. Using a mini iPhone was great, especially coming from a larger iPhone. As it was a really small and lightweight phone, it was just great to use. The one thing that I remember from the mini phones was being able to bring them anywhere and not have to worry about them. The weight of the phone was also very light, which was something that I really appreciated coming from the heavier stainless steel iPhones like the 12 Pro Max and the 11 Pro. These phones were overall, in my opinion, some of Apple's best iPhones. I really enjoyed using the 13 mini especially. I think that the 13 mini really perfected the cameras, since the iPhone 12, in my opinion, never had the greatest cameras. Even the Pros, I never was impressed by the cameras, but on the 13 mini, I really liked that camera. Not as good as the 13 Pro, not close to as good as the 13 Pro. That phone was on a different level, but still a big upgrade over the 12 mini. With the 14 series of iPhones the next year, Apple didn't just cut the minis out of the lineup, but they replaced them with the complete opposite of a mini phone, the iPhone 14 Plus. This was essentially an upscaled iPhone 14 with the same processor and general features as the iPhone 13. The 14 Plus didn't sell too well from my memory, and it made a lot of people wish for 3 iPhones a year instead of 4. Apple followed the 14 Plus up with the iPhone 15 Plus in 2023, which has a better processor, better cameras, and a refined design with the USB-C port. It seems as if Apple will continue making Plus iPhones, as it seems like the mini lineup of iPhones is unfortunately done for forever. With only 2 iPhones released, Apple showcased some of their best hardware capabilities with the mini iPhones. Being able to put a full iPhone 12 and iPhone 13 into an extra small case was an amazing thing to see at the time and still to this day. And it was also really great to use a phone that wasn't going up in size but going down in size. Another contribution to the mini phones being cut off was the Pro iPhones. The iPhone 13 Pro was a very impressive phone, bringing even better cameras, a 120Hz ProMotion display, improving battery runtime compared to the iPhone 12 series, and more. And while many people still chose the regular iPhone 13, the iPhone 13 Pro was never offered in the mini form factor. Same goes for the 12 Pro. So anybody who wanted to use a Pro iPhone was by that meaning excluded from using the mini form factor. I really enjoyed using my 13 Pro and my 13 mini when they were new, but I leaned heavily towards the 13 Pro due to the camera system and the 120Hz display. But speaking to many people, it seems like there's still pretty much a desire for a mini Pro iPhone, but I think that would be hard to put in place, especially with how Apple's lineup is going now. Overall, the iPhone 13 mini was the last mini iPhone due to people's extremely high expectations for battery life, along with a lack of interest from the general public for a small iPhone. I will note that, in defense of those complaining about the mini phone's battery life, the iPhone 12 mini was released directly after the iPhone 11 series, which was praised mainly for its long-lasting battery life. I've heard a lot of people saying that the battery life on the mini phones is simply unacceptable in that it doesn't last them 4 hours of screen on time, but my go-to response to these people has always been to just put the phone away for a while, and that's pretty much the best way to get improved battery life. Just don't use the phone as much. I understand that a lot of people need to use phones for different tasks now, but low power mode is always an option. MagSafe battery pack came out in 2021 when the iPhone 12s was still recent, and that's pretty much my defense for the Mini's battery life. It was never an issue for me, and it honestly wasn't an issue for a lot of people I've talked to. It was really just an issue with reviewers and people who just over-expected battery life from their phone. I mean, maybe thinking about it, maybe going back to a 3 iPhone a year schedule isn't bad, because the Plus iPhones don't really make any sense, and the Mini iPhones didn't really make any sense either, but that's why the Mini iPhones ended. If you enjoyed this video, a like would be appreciated, and if you want to see more content like this, you can subscribe. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.